Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Believe You Are a Good Mom podcast. I'm Emily Wardrop from Drop the Word Life Coaching, where we help moms of young kids drop power struggle wars to create more peace in their parenting. Do you want to be a good mom? I will tell you the one simple secret of how to be a good mom. You already are. Don't believe me? You've come to the right place. I'm glad you're here. I've got you. Because when you truly believe you are a good mom, everything will change for you as you live into the truth of who you've always been. Let's get started. Okay, welcome back to the Believe You Are a Good Mom podcast. I have Jane Copier with me today. This is so fun. So she is an empty nest coach for midlife moms, right? Midlife women, right?
Yep.
Not just moms. But of course, we're going to talk about mom stuff. So Jane, do you want to introduce yourself more than that?
Sure. So my name is Jane Copier, like you said, and like you, I became a life coach and was certified through the life coach school and have worked for the past 4 years, mainly as a marriage coach, but then am making a transition now. I am working with midlife women, midlife moms who want to join my Empty Nest Academy. And it's just a place for people to come. It's a community, really, is what I'm building. It's a sisterhood where people can come and be 100% themselves and work through all the difficulties that come with transitions in their lives. So children leaving, maybe a disenfranchised marriage, or maybe answering the question like, what's next for me? A lot of us feel like we don't have purpose or a solid plan moving forward, feel a little lost and adrift once the kids are gone and our roles are shifting and things like that. So it's just a really welcoming, warm environment for women to come and gather and support each other as they move into that next phase of life and help them really love the empty nest instead of mourning it.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I have a psychology background. I worked a lot of years as a school teacher and as a secondary ed school teacher, and then became a realtor. And so for me, the reason I became a life coach is I had great success being a realtor, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And once I had experienced the power of life coaching for myself and made so many beautiful changes in my own life and in my relationships and things like that, I thought, I really want to give back. I want to pay it forward. And this felt like the way to up level my life. And so I've never looked back. I love, love, love what I do. Like you.
Yeah. So I think that's a lot of our story, is that like coaching helped us so much. We just want to give back, help others. And so I'm tapping into, taking on the identity as the T1D mom coach. So I coach moms that have type 1 diabetes. And I just found out that Jane was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So they used to call it juvenile diabetes. And now anyone of any age is, getting it. And so, so Jane's an example that she's not.
I'm 53 and I found it completely by accident. I went in for neck surgery. They took my blood before surgery and said, "Hey, you have really high blood sugar," and said, "Go get it tested." And both my parents are type 1, but I think that, it can just be triggered. That gene, if you carry it, can be triggered by a virus or whatever. And my guess is COVID probably was the culprit for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, while we're talking about diabetes, let me just remember to plug my support group call. So if you or your children have diabetes and want to join, we do every Tuesday morning at 9:30 Mountain Time, just a Zoom call where you don't even have to participate if you want. You don't have to go on video. You don't have to say anything. It's just a time to refill yourself so that you can go back out into filling into everyone else. Right. And so we, of course, as any mom, right, that we can kind of lose ourselves taking care of our kids. And, the old, got to put your oxygen mask on first. We kind of forget to do that, especially with the diabetes, because it feels like fires all the time. Right. And we're putting out the fires and we forget that we have to do that self-care. Anyway, so just a quick 30 minutes a week to come together and support each other and learn these coaching tools. And we do some breathing exercises and so all the things to kind of just rejuvenate. So it's really fun.
I
and you
love
can,
that you offer that. What a great service that is, because boy, it could be so much. I have a girlfriend with a baby who has diabetes, and it is like such a struggle. And she just cries every time she has to do a finger prick.
yeah,
Like it's
I
really a
know, I
struggle.
can,
So I love that you offer that. Well done.
yeah. And Jane and I were talking about this before we hit record, and she was saying that even when she was diagnosed at this age, if she hadn't had those coaching skills that she's been learning all these years, I mean, because she has had them, it's like, oh yeah, it's just one more thing, you know? And that's how I felt about it too, is I was definitely overwhelmed and it was crazy and it was terrible. But I also was like so overwhelmed with gratitude that I have these skills and these tools to use to help manage myself as I manage my kids' diabetes. So that's what I want to
Yes.
give back and help other people with. But so Jane helps empty nest moms, which I laugh at myself because I keep having these guests that are not moms of young kids, which is like my thing. But I really love the light at the end of the tunnel perspective, like, oh, this phase will end. But it also is kind of a two-edged sword. It's like, oh, this phase ends and then a new phase starts. That doesn't sound so great either. Like basically there's always going to be something, right? Life's always 50-50. So I love to get the perspective of, you know, teenage coaches or adult children coaches to be like, the way that you handle parenting at that age, I like to use those tricks on my kids now. Tricks.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because really humans are humans. And like, for some reason we think when they're little, we can control them, but someday we get that smack in the face. It's like, oh, I can't really control this person. And that started for me like in the womb. My son was 11 days past due date, you know, and I'm like, oh, he has agency already. This is great, you know. And so it's not like, oh, they're teenagers and they have all this autonomy and they don't listen to me anymore. It's like they've never listened to me. So I really like to get, you know, perspective from older. Anyway, so tell us about this, your viral TikTok the other day. Share that
Oh,
message with us because this is really good.
yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, first, I just want to say like transitions are hard for everyone. And as we think about ourselves as women and as we age and how this transition is different, are going from being single to being married, then a transition to being a mother, then a transition to be a mother of a type 1 diabetic child, the transition as they leave the nest, all of those things. Transitions are hard. It's not an easy process if you're not managing your mind well. And the thing that's also true is that our kids go through transitions, and
Mhm.
those are difficult for them too. So, understanding why it's difficult is really helpful. And I'm sure you have educated your people on how the brain works and why we're so resistant to change. You know, that lower brain just loves safety and security in the cave, it doesn't want change. They say that change is more difficult for people. 90% of the people, they would prefer death over change.
Wow.
Like a move to a different state for most people is very,
Ugh.
very hard. Um, I was blessed to be forced to do that. I was counting with my husband the other day, and I went to different schools in third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade,
Wow.
seventh grade, ninth, and 10th. So 7 different schools
Moly.
as I was growing up, and I was forced to learn how to make those transitions. But so yes, back to your question about
Well, hold on. While we're talking
yeah.
about change, let me,
Okay.
it says, because on our support group call yesterday, that's what one of the moms was talking about, is that the only constant with diabetes is change. You know, you
Yes.
feel like you've got it managed. You're like, oh, we're doing good. And then it's like, I'm doing the exact same thing I did yesterday. Why am I getting a different result? So there's
Mhm.
big transitions like that, you know, like a
Right.
big move or changing grade. But kids are going through transitions all day long. You know, they're playing with their Lego and you want them to put their shoes on. Like that's a transition that we have
Yes.
to understand. Like the brain is just like a train going in one direction, and then to get it on to a different track is not that easy. And
Yeah.
we expect them to just hear us. First of all, they can't even hear us. They're in Legoland, you know,
Right.
and then
Yes.
to obey right away and to do what we ask them the first time. It's just ridiculous what we're expecting of their little brains. And so, yeah, transitions and change, it's really, really good to understand how the brain works so that we can work with it instead of getting frustrated.
Right. And managing those expectations, understanding
Mhm.
what's happening for them is so important. So the TikTok post that you were referring to is one where I um, had given the advice that when your young adult child comes to you and says, "Hey, I have this problem," that the best response is to have compassion, to say, "Oh, I am really sorry that you're going through this. This is a hard thing. I get it." Like we want them to know we understand hard things, right? We want to commiserate a little bit. Look, I've been through hard things too. Yeah, I'm really sorry you're experiencing this. But then to follow it up with, how are you planning to fix this? What are your ideas? What do you think the solution is?
Mhm.
Right? Rather than always jumping in to offer the solution. Because when I do that, I teach their brain to look to me for the solution
Yeah.
rather than to find those answers for themselves.
Yeah, so good. So that works for littles too. I love it. I love getting, the ideas that you're using on older kids and then be like, yeah, me too.
Mhm.
Because I feel like in theory, hopefully, like in this instance, if I'm teaching them to trust in themselves to find the answers, that then when they're older, then they already have that skill. And
Totally.
so as their problems get a little bit bigger, as they're teenagers or then, adults, that they're not always coming to me for the answer. So I had two examples pop up in my head of and I think I shared this on a podcast interview the other day, but my kindergartner, usually there's three of them that walk to school together. And it was a snow day that the kindergartner didn't want to walk in the snow, but the other two did, because it's like fun to walk in the snow. And so they took off and I drove her to school, but she doesn't usually get out of the car and go into the school by herself. And so all of a sudden she like got nervous and my brain wanted to be like, well, I can walk you into the office or I could do it. Like I can solve the problem for her. Like it's an
Mhm.
emergency that she feels scared. And I reminded myself all emotions are fine. It's not an emergency. This isn't a problem that needs to be fixed. That's like a mantra I talk about in my head all the time about emotions. And she can do it. She's done it a million times. She doesn't have her little, comfort blanket siblings with her, but she knows what to do. And so I
Yeah.
reminded her, she knows what to do. You can do it. Rah, rah, rah. She just needed a little cheerleading to like get out of the car and go do it. And she did. And she was totally fine. And it wasn't an emergency, but our brains want to panic like that. And then,
Yes.
and I don't know if that was necessarily her solving her own problem, but the other one was, and it was a drop off story too. I can't remember now.
Well, you
But
make
it's like,
such a good point in that, like, if I allow my kids to look to their own brains and find that solution, they gain confidence. They do know that they can trust their brain. For so many years, as I was growing up, I was looking to other people's brains for the answers. Like, wanted to be validated, wanted to make sure that the decision I was making was going to be the right one. We always want to be correct. And so when we can get our kids to think about the different options and choose, help them think through what the possible consequences would be, and then allow them to make that choice for themselves, they grow to trust themselves. It's just such a helpful skill.
yeah. And I cannot stand the whining. And I've decided like whining is like physiologically supposed to get you so annoyed, right? Because we're the mom, and especially when they're brand new, like when they cry, we solve their problem, so crying is an indication that they like need something, right? But then that just sours into whining, and then we can't stand the whining. So we're like, here, fine, have whatever you want. Like, just leave me alone. And
Yeah.
so to remember that they have some problem right then that they want you to fix is what the whining is. It's like, mom, I can't find my shoes or whatever it is. And
Mhm.
instead of like, oh, well, let me go find them for you. It's like, well, where did you leave them? What did you eat? Like teach them the thought process of finding it themselves instead of just fixing the problem. And again,
Right.
like we are so tempted to just fix it because they're in distress and we're physically programmed to help them get out of distress, but to again, like override kind of some of that primitive programming and like
Yeah.
train them how
Those
to take care of
urges to
themselves.
step in, and really helping kids to learn how to regulate themselves is
Mhm.
so important too. So I love the other idea that when kids are whining, when young adults are whining, whenever people are whining, we address that behavior and not so much the words coming out of the mouth.
Yeah.
We say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I can't understand. I can't hear you when you speak with that tone." Right? Remind them, "Oh, I'm just going to talk with a normal voice here instead of this high pitch whine,"
Mhm.
like that drives every mother crazy, right?
Mhm. And
and
to
so,
not whine back at their whining, right? Because that's what I do. I'm like, I can't stand
yeah,
the whiny, blah, 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 blah. And then I go into my own whine, right?
right.
So instead of like whatever they've come to you with the whine, like put it back on that. Well, what are you going to do about that? Instead of like,
Mhm.
how do you want me to fix it? It's just, it literally happens like 1,000 times a day with littles too, in the same way
Sure.
that like your adult child might come to you every now and then with a big problem, but these littles have little problems all day long that we're just used to fix it. Even something as small as like, will you grab me a fork? I'm like, if somebody asked me, will you grab me a fork? I'd be happy to give them a fork, but that's not what they do, right? They're like, and a fork? Or I don't have a fork.
I need a
Yeah.
fork.
And that's what I always say. I'm like, if you ask me nicely, I'm happy to get help, but like really, and it's totally understandable. If I'm sitting at the table and my husband's standing by the fork drawer, I'm going to ask him for a fork too. So it's not that they have to do everything for themselves all the time. It's like
Yes.
within reason, but just to kind of keep that in mind sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super helpful to help them be independent. It's so interesting to watch my daughter and our grandbabies. They have 4 kids, and their kids are so self-sufficient because they are just teaching them at a young age that they can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll go over once in a while if they leave to go out of town for a little getaway or something. And our little Easton, who's 5, is like, Grandma, do you want me to make you breakfast?
Oh,
And he's
wow.
not
That's so
talking
fun.
about pouring me a bowl of cereal. He will actually grab out the eggs. He wants to cook. He'll make
Mm-hmm.
pancakes. Like they really allow their kids to try to do things, which I really didn't have the patience for when I was a young
Right.
mom. Because I'm like, if you try, it's going to make a mess, and then I'm the one that
Mhm.
has to clean up. Like, just go away. I don't want your
Mhm.
help, right? But yeah, I just marvel at young moms right now and their ability to um, raise productive human beings, and being able to tolerate that impatience is just so important. I wish so much that, I had had those skills when I was a young mom. So
Yeah.
good
Yeah, for
stuff.
sure. I have a couple podcast episodes recently about patience. That's always a big
Mhm.
one that I'm thinking and talking
Yeah.
about all the time. And kids just want to, right? They get into that no me do it phase, and so
Mhm.
you can tell that they want to develop the autonomy, and that we just shut it down by, yeah, like because it's inconvenient for us or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I feel like whenever we get into these sort of like parenting tips types of things, that I always want to put the self-compassion caveat in there. Like, if you are the annoyed mom that doesn't want to clean up the eggs, it's totally fine for you to make it for them. Like it's fine to
Totally.
be wherever you're at, and it's all good. And we're not saying this is the right way and you're doing it wrong. Because that's how I always interpret
Mhm.
parenting advice. And so I never want
Right.
to be that for anybody.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I think we're so hard on ourselves as women. I mean, our brain
mhm,
is always looking for, and well, we're basically just comparing ourselves to other people all day long. And we tell a story about ourselves that just really isn't true. So
yeah,
you're
exactly.
spot on with the compassion.
Yeah. And to that extent, I also want to talk to you about validating yourself, because you mentioned this in that same scenario. Like, the reason we want to fix our things for our kids is that makes us feel like a hero. Like, oh, pat yourself on the
Mhm.
back. I fixed their
Mhm.
problem. I'm such a good mom. Right. And
Yeah.
now we're like, you'd be a better mom if you ask them to fix it themselves. And then it's like, oh no, I'm a bad mom because I did that. And so that's my whole thesis of this podcast, is that you are a good mom. Doesn't matter what you do or don't do. So let's just
Right.
drop that whole lie. And
Right.
however you handled it was fine. Yes, you are a good mom. Now, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
You don't have to do any particular thing to prove that you're a good mom. And so to validate yourself with that, and I would just love to hear any other tips you have of how to validate yourself, so you don't have to feel like you have to fix their problems,
Right.
or drive them to school when they don't want to walk. Like, you have to prove that you're a good mom. Like, how do we just validate ourselves so we don't need it from them?
Well, I think it's hard whenever we're looking for validation from any other source,
Mhm.
because if we need validation from someone else or something else, then we are sunk, because if we don't get it, we don't have any other option than to feel invalidated, right? And so I think probably the best example I can use is that for lots and lots of years, I really wanted my husband to validate me by being the type of husband I wanted him to be.
Yes.
I really wanted him to follow my manual for him and do all the things that I thought showed love. And
Mhm.
I cheated myself out of at least 15 years of really allowing myself to be loved the way my husband loves and to feel loved and to not need it because I hadn't found that love for myself. I was fairly insecure. We did move a lot and we traveled a lot. And so I was really super used to being the new girl, the one who is everybody's eyes go to this person. And um, so, every year I would just like pray, oh, please God, just give me one new friend, just one friend, I would just want one friend. Cause if I could have that one friend, it meant like I was likable, and so like everyone else, I was raised with the idea that, you meet your soulmate, you meet this perfect one, he's going to mirror you perfectly. He's going to see in you all the wonderful things that you are, and you're going to see all the wonderful things that he is. And we're just going to be happily ever after married and joyful together. And so, when that didn't happen in my marriage, it was a hard situation. I was full of lots of anger and resentment. And it wasn't really until I discovered meditation that I came to really feel my true value. And I think for your community of moms who probably don't have a lot of time to sit in a peaceful place and meditate, if I could even give one little plug for that, it's just so important to find that time to sit still. I I really remember this happening for me. I was trying to learn how to meditate. This was probably in 2007 when I first kind of became aware of meditation. And I remember I was trying and I was just trying to clear my brain. And for me, I would kind of like meditate, pray, and it was just kind of this thing. And I had this sort of, and I wouldn't call it a vision, but I had a picture in my brain of what my being really looked like who I really was. I could see myself. And I remember just visualizing. And again, I don't know if this was given to me as a gift, but I just saw these loving hands of my Heavenly Father and my Heavenly Mother just come and rest on my face, like in just the most adoring gesture. And it was a life-changing experience for me. I really felt, oh, wait, these are heavenly parents for me. I am literally their daughter. I'm one generation from deity. And it was so impactful for me. And obviously, like when you have an experience like that, you want to replicate it. And so the more I would meditate, the more I would have this, and the more I would pray, I would really came to understand who I was. And the more that I learned who I was, the less I needed validation from anyone else. It isn't easy to understand our worth. I get it. Like it took me so many years and lots of trying things that I thought would define my worth. Lots of going to the gym 6 days a week, trying to have the perfect body, lots of trying to look like the perfect family and have the perfect kids. All of that, like just trying to measure up because we always, like I said, compare ourselves to other people. But it's so important to find out and to understand and start appreciating the person that we are. What are our divine gifts? So our brains are really good storytellers. And from the time we're little, people give us labels like she's really shy, she's the good kid, she's the hyper one, like so we grow up sometimes with these labels and we start to believe that story. Our brains love storytelling, and it will start to gather evidence that this is true or that this is true. And so many of us grow up with a story that we tell about ourselves that just isn't healthy. We start believing maybe some of the criticisms when we get to, that grade school age where kids are cruel and say things. They have no filter. If you have a bad hair day, they let you know, like just we start to become aware of ourselves. We start to become aware of our flaws, and we start to tell ourselves a story. And unfortunately, sometimes that really follows us into adulthood, and we don't stop to question it.
Yeah. Yeah. My email this week was about labels. So that's fun. And the stories we tell ourselves and how that keeps us stuck and remembering who we really are. And I love that we're one generation away from deity. That's so good.
Yeah.
It's not even like, how
Yeah. You
close
don't
we
need a
are to
pedigree
Eve,
chart.
Yeah. It's not like God, Adam and Eve, the whole pedigree chart in the mass. It's like we're direct. That's so fun. So I was gonna ask you, I remember now, to tell us the story that you told us in the summit, but I'll just leave that as a cliffhanger so that people can go, because you still have access to the summit. Jane and I were both in for the LDS life coaches. And she tells a really fun story that goes with this too. Do you even know what I'm talking about? Which
Are
story?
you talking about the grade school one where yeah. Oh, I can tell whatever you want.
And so basically to get our own backs, right? That we know our worth. So we don't have to get that from our husband or from our kids or somebody else to validate us. We can validate ourselves so that when our kids say things, you always tell people that you're a good mom, but you're the worst mom. That I can just laugh about that doesn't hurt at all. Like, I know that I am a good mom and she doesn't get it. And I really wish that she would get it because I want her to know how good she is.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. Like, she's already like, taking things.
Our kids are little. Yeah, they can be little bloodsuckers and they can just be like, you do all the things for me. You make me feel this way. You made me mad, mom. You did this, like they want to blame us for everything. And listen, if we believe everything that comes out of those little mouths, we're in trouble.
For sure.
Right? And so I think too, like, as you have an experience with your kid who's upset with you because they're not getting what they want or whatever, and we do tend to like feel like, oh, maybe I'm failing, or they make a choice, right? They make a choice that goes completely against what you've taught them. And you're tempted to say, how did I fail here? What did I do wrong here? And the temptation is just to go and beat ourselves up. And so questioning that lower brain, that's always going to be critical of us. It's always going to be trying to find the problems with us, but actually just silencing that lower brain, saying, listen, today I'm not listening to you. I'm going to think on purpose. Like, what do I know about myself as a mom? Who am I as a mom? I know that I love my children. I know that I am trying my hardest. I know that I have limited energy to give, and I'm giving all that I can. I know that I care deeply about their life experience. I know that I care that they have food and clothing and shelter. I know that I care about their emotional health. All these things I know about myself as a mom. That's what I am. I'm not this mom who isn't capable. God gave me these children because they're meant to be mine.
Yes.
Right. I am uniquely qualified to be their mother. So brain, show me what those qualities that I have are.
Yeah.
Direct our brain to find those answers.
Yeah. And I love how you brought up meditation, because I definitely am in that trap of like, well, when do I even get a second to myself? And, maybe I have time to take one breath, but when am I going to actually have time to meditate? So I actually started waking up at 6 a.m. and doing a group call where we do, breathing and meditating and prayer and receiving and sharing. And all of that is so good that's actually why I started my diabetes support group call, is that I want to kind of mirror the same thing that I get there. Is like, I get a chance to just like sit and breathe, and I have to do it at 6 a.m. to have a time. But if,
it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's so worth it.
I never thought I would be that wake up early to get stuff done before my kids wake up. Like, I've heard people say that all the time, and I'm like, no way. Like, I was way too into my sleep, but I can't even sleep anymore. It's so good. Like, my body knows, like, I need that time.
Good for you.
And it's so
awesome. Important. We have to have that time for ourselves. Like that, we have to make ourselves a priority.
Yeah.
This is, I'm sure, your message all the time, but we feel guilty because the kids need this, the kids need that. But if I'm so depleted that I'm starting to resent the kids, and I'm resenting the husband, and I'm mad at them because I'm not giving myself what I need, I'm out of my, I'm not taking responsibility for it, really.
Yeah, exactly. And what we learn in those meditations is who we are, which you demonstrated so beautifully in your, thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
experience you had, because that's what happens. It's like, as we meditate and pray and think about who we really are, who God really is, our relationship to him, and like to just plead to have the help of Jesus Christ to make it through the day.
Yeah.
It's like, that's where the strength comes from, is remembering who we are, knowing who he is, knowing our relationship to deity. It's so good. And
Yeah.
I've had like beautiful experiences with Heavenly Mother in those meditations too. So it's so
Yes.
fun.
We have to connect with our Heavenly Mother. She's like some of my most spiritual experiences in my life involve that that feeling of closeness with her and feeling, especially in the temple, like I just feel her there. And so for me, when I say God, I mean Heavenly
Yeah.
Mother and Heavenly Father together. But
Me too.
yeah, I'm with you. Like it's interesting if you do that, take that time to fill your bucket there and you do feel that support from heaven, like it, that, I guess that's the feeling, right? I am supported. I am held. I am loved. I am worthy. I am helped. I am lifted. All the things that I think when I meditate, when I feel their presence as I go through my day, and maybe I stumble and maybe I make a mistake as a mom, or maybe I screw something up and I really wish that I hadn't done that thing. I remember, oh, I'm just a tiny piece of their pie. My name is not savior, right? That's not my job title nor my duty.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to love, to do my best. And then I get to give it all to God. I get to give it all to my savior, who that is his title and his job.
Yeah. And just to wrap it back where we started, as we pray and we meditate and we know who we are, we become empowered to fix our own problems. So again, just like the kids coming to us for help, we go to God for help, and he says, what are you going to do to fix this?
Uh-huh.
I'm so sorry you're going through that. And how are you going to handle it? Just like we want to
Yes.
do with our kids. And that's what I want to do as a conduit too. Like, as a coach, I'm just sort of the middleman, to help you get in touch with your own intuition, with your own knowing, because you can fix your own problems. You don't need me or any other parenting expert or whatever to tell you how to raise your kids. Like you said, God gave us the exact kids. He knows I call it the divine algorithm, like all the tiny little pieces at play here, and why
Mhm.
you are the perfectly imperfect mom for them.
Right.
And to trust in that, and know that, like, yeah, we can take care of our own mess. Not that God isn't helping us, but just like
Right.
we're helping our kids by empowering them to fix it themselves.
Right. Well, we're born to be creators, right? We're born to be seekers of truth and of goodness. And so anyone who's listening to you is obviously in tune with that piece of them. They're seeking help. They're seeking to learn that knowledge, to know how do I manage myself. And there's all of this truth out there that's available to us if we'll seek for it. And so knowing that we are divine beings and knowing that we are creators gives us that confidence and that power to say, there's no problem too big.
Yeah.
Everything is solvable. Everything's figure outable.
Yeah.
And one more thought for you that my girlfriend would always say to me, she's fantastic, but she would say, flexible people are happy people.
Nice.
And it's no more true than in motherhood, right? Like we
Right.
just have to go with the
Roll with the
flow
punches.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, Jane, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So I know I have listeners that don't have young kids, and they're like not interested in, coaching with me and a bunch of moms of young kids, right? And
Yeah.
so tell us more about the Empty Nest Academy and how they can work with you. And
Yeah. Well, they can go to my website. It's just Jane Copier, JaneCopier. It's a funky name. It's a Dutch name, janecopier.com. And they can learn about Empty Nest Academy. I've got some free resources there that they can attach, grab.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just a beautiful experience. It's a year-long process of evolution as we go through that midlife transition together and help help give women power and empowerment and the ability to show up in their relationships as a full and equal partner, to be able to create relationships with other people in their lives that are appropriate. So our roles shift as we parent adult children. We are not their caregivers anymore. And so how do we make that transition? We work through all of that. We learn how to process emotion. We learn how to reframe our story in a way that's also true, that gives us joy. And so there's just a lot of work we do in there for a full year. I'm so excited. I mean, I just put out in our coaching circles, hey, who would like to come be a guest in my program? I've got 18 plus coaches who are just raising their hands saying, yes, let me come help these women. So we'll have guests and all kinds of awesome resources. It's just going to be amazing. So join me.
So fun. So is it a specific start and end date of the year? So are you doing like a wait list and then
anytime?
Okay.
Our kickoff call is April 3rd this is 2023. So April 3rd of 2023 will be our kickoff call. And then, so anyone who joins before then gets free early access to the site, to the course, to all the freebies and good stuff in there. And then, it will be for a full year. And then they'll decide at that point if they want to renew or not.
Fun. Okay. Yeah. Well, then this was perfect time to get in there in time for all the early access. Thank you for being here. And I will talk to your people again in there, because I'm one of the 19 people that wants to help. Maybe I'm the 20th.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to have you. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Okay. We'll talk to everybody later. Bye.
All right.
Hi, thanks so much for listening. Have you signed up for your RBC yet? What is an RBC? Well, it's a relationship boost call, and I am gifting 365 of these for free this year. So go to dropthewar.com/appointments to find a time that works for both of us. We'll hop on Zoom for a quick 15 to 20 minutes, and all you got to do is have somebody in mind that you want to improve your relationship with. It's fun, it's easy, it's a good time. You're going to feel amazing afterwards. And no strings attached. Just come on, have a great free coaching call, and then go on your way. And you can come back for as many as you need, because we know it's no one and done around here with relationships. So go to dropthewar.com/appointments to find a time that works for both of us. And let's get boosting those relationships. See you there. Bye.